We're about a month away from the Bengals announcing their latest Ring of Honor class, and with changes coming in the near future to the whole process, I think it's time for one special former player to get his moment in the sunlight, and in this video, I'll explain who that player is. What's up, Bengals fans? John Sheeran of A to Z Sports Cincinnati here, and let's talk about something a little bit more lighthearted than contract disputes and players withholding themselves from practicing and all that jazz, right? Let's talk about the Bengals Ring of Honor. A few weeks back, the Bengals announced which game they will induct their 2025 Ring of Honor class. It'll be Week 8 against the New York Jets, and it'll be 2 of 9 nominees from this year's ballot. Now, it should be noted that the 9 candidates this year have been on the ballot ever since the Ring of Honor was first started back in 2021. And just like the previous 4 years, 2 former players will be inducted. But the Bengals also teased that starting next year, there will be changes coming to the Ring of Honor. Now, the team didn't specify what changes are on the horizon, but the 2 best guesses as for those changes are how many former players get inducted per ceremony, and if the ceremony is no longer going to be on an annual basis. There are 10 names in the Ring of Honor currently, and they've done this for 4 years, and there's going to be 2 more this year, so that's going to be 12 inductees in a span of 5 years. The club naturally wants to make this a more sustainable thing for the years to come, so they're either going to reduce the amount of times that they do this or reduce the amount of players that get inducted every time that they do this. And what all of this means is that there are 9 names on that ballot, and 7 of them won't get in this year, and those 7 specifically are going to have a tougher time getting in future years, which is why I think that this year is finally the year that Dave Lapham gets inducted into the Ring of Honor. And before we get to the reasons why, I just want to make it clear that I grew up with Bengals football, which means that I also grew up with Dave Lapham's voice. No matter what was going on with the team, he was synonymous with it. And there are fans who know him more for what he does now, what he's done for the past couple of decades, a lot more than what he did for this team as a player. And his playing career specifically is why I think that if he doesn't get in this year, he may have a hard time getting in future years. Out of the 9 nominees in this year's class, a lot of them have Pro Bowl honors next to their name, a lot of them have team records next to their name, or at least stats beyond just games played. Lapham doesn't have any of that. He's 9th all-time in games played. He was a part of that Super Bowl 16 team, and he's been a part of the franchise for basically his entire professional career. But it's been very clear and obvious with the fan voting over the last 4 years that the Ring of Honor has been about bringing attention to players who deserve proper recognition, not just from the Bengals, but from around the NFL as a whole. Like, it's no coincidence that both Ken Anderson and Ken Riley were the first 2 nominees voted in by the fans, because everyone believes that they should be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And of course, Ken Riley eventually got voted into the Hall of Fame, unfortunately after he died, which was tragic, but they're still pushing for Ken Anderson to get that same honor. The very next year, Willie Anderson goes into the Ring of Honor, and he's been a Pro Football Hall of Fame finalist for the last 4 years, and he's going to be a finalist this year as well. Even Corey Dillon has that Hall of Fame support, and he was a Ring of Honor inductee last year. Dave Lapham is obviously not going into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, so voting him into the Ring of Honor is not for the same reasons as some of the other guys who've been voted in before him. But if the team is really shifting things where it's only going to be 1 inductee per ceremony, or the ceremony is going to be every 2 or 3 years, I think this is the time to make sure that Lapham gets this moment. Because in future years, when there's going to be even more names and more recent names on the ballot, like the likes of AJ Green, Geno Watkins, and players like that, it's going to be harder and harder for Lapham to get in, I think. Now, I can't vote in this process because I'm not a season ticket holder, and I think voting has already closed 2 weeks ago anyways, so this was not meant to sway any voters regardless. I have pushed for other players to be inducted over the past 4 years, including Lamar Parrish, who I think still remains one of the more underrated Bengals in franchise history. But this is not about any of that. I think Lapham has been close to being inducted over the past few years because of how popular he is with the fan base and how he's basically Mr. Bengal himself. And if it does become harder and harder for players, especially those who played in the 70s and 80s, to be voted in future years, I think maybe this is finally the time. But unlike me, I'm sure there's someone watching this video who did vote in this year's Ring of Honor ballot. And if that was you, leave a comment down below who you voted for and tell me why I'm right or wrong about Dave Lapham finally getting in 2025.